Let's see ahead of the rest. I'm Shivan Jonna.
And I'm Jyotsna Kumar. And on the show today from West Asia, air city strikes in Yemen's capital Sanaa on Sunday killed at least 6 people, according to the country's Iran-backed Houthi rebels, who have repeatedly launched missiles and drones at Israel throughout the Gaza war. And this while Iran's Supreme Leader Ayatollah Khamenei praised the Yemen's Houthis and called for blocking the ways for any assistance to Israel. We'll get you the update on that news on the show.
On the other war front, Ukraine's President Zelensky has said that a meeting with Russian counterpart Putin remains the most effective way forward, renewing calls for a bilateral summit. But on the other hand, Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov has condemned Zelensky for demanding an immediate meeting at all costs. There were more comments which came in from the Russian side as well. We'll bring you all the developments right here on World DNA. Let's start with the headlines first.
India's envoy to Russia says Indian companies will continue buying oil from wherever they get the best deal. Kumar says New Delhi's priority is ensuring energy security for its people.
Houthi officials say Israeli strikes in Yemen's capital Sanaa on Sunday killed at least 6 people and injured more than 60. The Israeli military said the targets included a military compound housing the presidential palace, 2 power plants and a fuel storage site.
Iran's Supreme Leader Ayatollah Khamenei backs Yemen's Houthis' call for blocking the ways for any assistance to Israel.
France's foreign ministry summons the US ambassador to Paris, Charles Kushner, and this is after he wrote a letter to the French President Macron, claiming the French government isn't doing enough to fight anti-Semitism in the country.
Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov says Moscow will not accept President Volodymyr Zelensky's signature on any deal to end the war, as the Kremlin views Zelensky as de facto head of the regime but not a legitimate leader of Ukraine.
Kristen, I think the Russians have made significant concessions to President Trump for the first time in 3.5 years of this conflict. They've actually been willing to be flexible on some of their core demands.
US Vice President J.D. Vance rejects suggestions that Moscow is slow-walking a potential peace deal in Ukraine, says Russia has made significant concessions to Trump over its demands for ending the war.
The U.S. state of Maryland has detected a new case of the flesh-eating screwworm parasite in a human in the country. As per reports, the case was traced to a person who traveled from Guatemala.
Rescue teams in Pakistan have urged residents of villages along the Satluj River in Punjab province to evacuate immediately due to rapidly rising water levels.
Asian markets rally as investor bet on U.S. rate cuts and await Nvidia's earnings. Fed's dovish shift boosts optimism, but inflation data and chip sector moves could test market momentum this week.
Aryna Sabalenka starts her US Open title defense with a straight sets win over Rebecca Masarova. The world number one will face Paulina Kudermetova in the next round.
Okay, so much Sabalenka. Please just the last 7-5, 6-1.
In our top story, World DNA, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky reaffirmed that direct talks with Russian President Vladimir Putin remain the most effective path forward.
And this is after he emphasized Ukraine's continued fight for freedom while its call for peace are ignored. In a defiant Independence Day address to the nation of Ukraine. Looking ahead to the post-war period, Zelensky stated that the presence of foreign troops in Ukraine would be important.
The issue on the ground, the presence, as they say, boots on the ground, is important to us. It is too early to talk about this. First, the infrastructure will be prepared. And of course, the Ukrainian army plays an important role in this infrastructure.
The Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney, who was also in Kiev for the commemoration, said Ukraine's security guarantees are not the choice of Russia.
We are working through with our allies in the Coalition of the Willing and with Ukraine the modalities of those security guarantees on land, in the air, and the sea, and I would not exclude the presence of troops.
Amid this, Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov told NBC News that Putin and US President Trump had discussed the issue of security guarantees for Ukraine and that Putin had raised the issue of the failed Istanbul discussions of 2022. In that year, in those discussions, Moscow and Kiev discussed Ukraine's permanent neutrality in return for security guarantees from the 5 permanent members of the UNSC.
Now, Lavrov said the countries would be guaranteeing the security, which he underlined must be neutral, non-aligned with any military bloc, and non-nuclear. He made it clear that NATO membership for Ukraine was unacceptable for Russia. Listen in.
President Putin and President Trump encouraged.
And the guarantors would be guaranteeing the security of Ukraine, which must be neutral, which must be non-aligned with any military bloc, and which must be non-nuclear.
During negotiations.
Commenting on Ukraine's leadership, Lavrov said the Kremlin views Zelensky as the de facto head of the regime in Ukraine, but not a legitimate leader of Ukraine. And this is while adding that the Kremlin will not accept Zelensky's signature on legal documents establishing terms for an end to the war. He also accused the Western countries of trying to block peace negotiations to the war after a flurry of diplomatic efforts appeared to stall.
They're just looking for an excuse to block negotiations and want it to be seen not as their fault or Zelensky's, who is also being obstinate, setting conditions and demanding an immediate meeting with Putin at all costs.
Now, amid this, U.S. Vice President J.D. Vance has come out in support of Russia, saying the country is making significant concessions to Trump for the first time in more than 3 years of the conflict. Listen in.
They've actually been willing to be flexible on some of their core demands. They've talked about what would be necessary to end the war. Of course, they haven't been completely there yet, or the war would be over, but we're engaging in this diplomatic process in good faith.
The U.S. Vice President cited the U.S. administration's belief that Ukraine's security guarantees and territorial issues will be a key factor in reaching a peace deal.
Now, his remarks come as tensions remain high on the battlefield. On Sunday, the Kremlin said Ukraine had attacked Russian power and energy facilities, blaming drone attacks for a fire at a nuclear power plant in its western Kursk region.
The Ukraine Government Center for Countering Disinformation said that it had been reported that the shooting down of a drone allegedly caused the fire and blamed Russia for spreading manipulations. There were no injuries and the fire was extinguished quickly. Also on Sunday, Russia and Ukraine both confirmed a prisoner swap which had taken place with 146 soldiers on each side being exchanged. Russia's defense ministry also said that 8 people from Russia's Kursk region, which was partially occupied by Ukraine for several months, had been handed over and would return home. Zelensky said Those returned by Russia included soldiers, border guards and civilians, most of whom have been in captivity since 2022. He also said that journalist Dmytro Kilyuk, who was kidnapped in the Kiev region at the start of the war, was coming home. North Korea is bolstering its air defenses. The country has claimed to have test-fired 2 new air defense missiles.
Now, the location of the test and exact features of the missiles do remain unknown. North Korea only claims the new missiles have superior combat capabilities.
Now, the country's supreme leader, Kim Jong-un, was present at the site when the tests were taking place as missiles were being test-fired, according to Korean Central News Agency. The KCNA, the new air defense missiles are based on a unique and special technology. On the results of the test, the agency claimed that missiles are suitable for destroying various aerial targets.
Now, Kim has also assigned a so-called important task to the country's defense science sector. Now, details do remain undisclosed. The Korean peninsula remains on edge, despite South Korea's new president, Lee Jae-myung, looking to warm ties.
The timing of North Korea's missile tests is crucial. South Korea and the US are fortifying their combined defense posture. An 11-day Ulchi Freedom Shield exercise is underway, and this large-scale joint military exercise is conducted in support of the Korean Armistice Agreement.
Also, South Korea's President Lee Jae-myung is headed to Washington, D.C., where he will meet U.S. President Donald Trump on Monday. The central issue of this meeting is expected to be the future course of U.S.-South Korea alliance.
The U.S. President has made it clear that Seoul has to pay more for U.S. troops stationed in South Korea.
All right, shifting our focus to West Asia, Israel has vowed it will continue to strike Houthi targets if they don't end their aggression against Israel.
Israel struck multiple targets in Yemen's capital, Sanaa. This happened on Sunday. An official from the Houthis' health ministry reported that 6 people died in that attack, while 67 were wounded in the strikes.
Now, the Israeli army claimed to have struck multiple targets related to Houthis. It said that the strikes were in response to repeated attacks by the Houthi terrorist regime against the state of Israel and its civilians. Now, late on Friday, the Houthis fired a missile that Israeli authorities said had most likely fragmented in mid-air.
The targets included Houthi military infrastructure in Sanaa area. This site is located in the presidential palace. Other targets include a fuel storage site and 2 power stations in Asar and Hiza areas.
Whoever attacks us, we attack them. Whoever plans to attack us, we attack them. I believe the entire region is learning about the strength and determination of the State of Israel.
Netanyahu Defense Minister Israel Katz and Army Chief Eyal Zamir followed the strikes in Yemen from a command bunker.
The Houthis have vowed to respond. Their political bureau issued a statement saying Israeli aggression will not deter them. They will continue to support Palestinians no matter the sacrifices.
The strikes come 2 days after Houthis launched an aerial assault on Israel. On Friday, Houthis had fired ballistic missiles with cluster bomb warhead. The Houthis claim they successfully hit Ben Gurion Airport with a Palestine II hypersonic missile.
The missile reportedly broke mid-air as it was descending towards the target. According to an initial investigation by the Israeli Air Force, the missile carried a cluster warhead, making it the first time that the Houthis have used this type of a weapon against Israel during the ongoing war.
On the Lebanon front, Israel claimed to have struck a Hezbollah facility in southern Lebanon. The IDF said it will continue to operate in order to remove any threat towards Israel and its civilians.
Some Palestinian groups in Lebanon have laid down their arms, and this comes in compliance with the agreement signed between Palestinian President Abbas and Lebanese President Aoun.
Well, but Hezbollah has so far refused to lay down arms. In July, Hezbollah leader Naim Qassem warned the Lebanese government. He said there will be no life in Lebanon if there is confrontation between the Hezbollah and the government.
Iran Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei has come out all guns blazing against the United States, effectively slamming the door shut on talks with the White House.
Well, Khamenei says Washington wants Tehran to be obedient, a demand he calls a grave insult to the Iranian people, rendering U.S.-Iran issue unresolvable.
Speaking during a religious event in Tehran, Khamenei declared that Iranians will resist with all their power. He called expectations from the U.S. misguided. He criticized calls for direct negotiations with the United States, saying there can be no headway as long as Washington seeks to impose its will.
This issue is unsolvable. The president of the U.S. wants Iran to obey America's orders. The Iranian nation is deeply offended by such a great insult and will stand up with all its strength to those who hold such misguided expectations.
Khamenei also backed Yemen's Houthi rebels amid Israeli strikes targeting them. He called for blocking the ways for any assistance to Israel.
His comments come amid renewed diplomatic efforts. Iran and European powers have agreed to resume talks aimed at reviving nuclear negotiations. Britain, France and Germany, they have warned Tehran if Iran does not return to the table, they will trigger a snapback of United Nations sanctions. The proposed talks are expected to begin on Tuesday.
Well, nuclear negotiations have been suspended since June, when Israel and U.S. collectively struck Iran's nuclear sites during 12-day war. The strikes derailed what would have been the sixth round of talks on Iran's enrichment program.
Khamenei also urged Iranians to stay united. He accused U.S. and Israel of conspiring to create divisions inside Iran. He described the efforts as foreign efforts to subjugate the country.
The Zionist and American agents are inside the country, and they want to create differences and divisions between the people through them or through internal forces.
A Syria's transition to a new parliament is facing growing criticism.
Kurdish leaders in the north and northeast say that the process is undemocratic and deliberately excludes millions of Syrians. Syria's interim government dissolved parliament and introduced a temporary 5-year constitution. A transitional parliament of 210 members is now scheduled to be selected in September. 2/3 of the lawmakers will be chosen by local bodies, while President Ahmad al-Shara will appoint the rest. The election committee announced the process will be postponed in Druze majority Sweda, along with Kurdish-controlled Raqqa and Hasake. Kurdish militias control approximately 1/3 of Syria's territory, primarily in the country's northeast.
Well, the Kurdish administration has refused to accept these elections, calling the move an act of denial that excludes more than 5 million people. In a statement, Kurdish government said these elections are neither democratic nor express the will of Syrians.
The interim constitution is also under fire. Critics say it gives excessive powers to President Shara, failing to represent Syria's ethnic and religious diversity and echoing the autocratic rule of the Assad dynasty.
The Kurds described the planned parliament as a superficial step and vowed not to recognize any decisions made under this system. Now, they have been negotiating with Damascus on a deal to integrate Kurdish institutions into state structures. But talks have stalled, with the Kurds demanding decentralization of power.
The security situation in Syria remains fragile. Last month, Sweda province was shaken by deadly sectarian clashes, making access to the region difficult and raising doubts about whether the transition can bring unity to a fractured nation. A new health crisis is unfolding in South Africa, where world's largest HIV program is under strain.
Well, the crisis is triggered after the United States cut hundreds of millions of dollars in aid. Dozens of clinics have closed, and thousands are left without life-saving medication after the Trump administration slashed foreign aid. Clinics that provided free HIV treatment struggle to survive.
In South Africa, more than 63,000 patients were receiving care at 12 non-profit clinics. Treatment of up to 2 lakh patients have been impacted. Sex workers and transgender people are among the hardest hit. Some are forced to buy medicine from the black market, where prices have nearly doubled.
Our lives matter. We are human. The funding played a significant role in our lives. The clinic would come to my apartment, give me services there. They would come test me in my home every 3 months, give me my refill. I would only go to the clinic for my prescription.
The U.S. has since issued a limited waiver allowing some HIV services to resume, but doctors warn the damage is done. South Africa's government says no one should be turned away from public facilities, but the country risks losing ground in its fight against HIV.
We are scared. We are scared that we are going to see high numbers of people living with HIV rising. We are scared that we are going to see people dying again. We are worried about the number of infants that are going to be born with HIV because the lack of services.
With the world's largest HIV program at stake, millions of lives depend on whether the funding returns or whether South Africa can shoulder the burden of HIV alone.
Moving on, anti-migrant protests have flared again in the United Kingdom. Demonstrators gathered outside a hotel in Epping, east of London, that is housing asylum seekers.
Now, this latest protest follows a series of confrontations, most recently in Liverpool, where large numbers of anti-immigration protesters and counter-protesters faced off in the city centre, with police forced to step in to keep the two sides apart, a stark sign of mounting tensions over immigration.
Refugees are welcome here. Refugees are welcome here.
I'm here because I'm scared that our country is going. We're being invaded. There's 100,000 plus people who've come by small boats. They're being placed in houses next door on my street. Yeah, on my street they're coming.
The reality is, it's not about a few people coming over in rubber dinghies. That is not a threat to our society. The threat to our society is corruption from the top, too many billionaires, not enough investment in infrastructure, people not looking after each other.
Last week, a court ordered the removal of asylum seekers from the Bell Hotel in Epping, a site that has become a flashpoint for anti-immigration rallies. The government has said it will appeal that ruling.
In Epping, protesters gathered waving British flags and holding placards that read deport foreign criminals, defend our girls. Epping says no, close Bell and stop the boats, quote unquote.
According to media reports, immigration now tops public concerns, and Prime Minister Keir Starmer's Labour government is under pressure to deliver on its pledge to end the use of costly hotel accommodation, which runs into billions of pounds each year.
In recent weeks, Britain has witnessed frequent protests outside hotels accommodating asylum seekers, driven partly by public safety concerns after Mohammed Sharwak, a 32-year-old Syrian national residing at the Bell Hotel in Epping, was charged with sexual assault.
Now, in its latest response to the issue, the government says it will reform the asylum appeals process to speed up decisions, reduce the backlog of more than 106,000 cases, and phase out hotel use altogether.
Under the plan, an independent body of adjudicators will be created to handle appeals where wait times currently exceed a year for more than 51,000 cases.
Well, Perth City in Australia, that's famous for its beaches and sunshine, is now famous for something else.
And this time it's methamphetamines, better known as meth. A new report confirms Perth has the highest meth use of any Australian city, around 70 doses a day for every 1,000 people.
Well, Western Australia also tops the country's regions for meth use, and the problem is only getting worse. Between August 2023 and August 2024, meth use jumped 21% nationwide, cocaine surged 69%, MDMA nearly 50%, heroin up 14%. Meth dominates the market. It makes up 58% of all drugs by volume and 78% by street value.
Police are seizing record amounts. In the past year, federal officers intercepted more than 33 tons of hard drugs. 11 tons were meth, yet supply continues to flood in. Authorities have expressed concern, saying record meth consumption translates to the significant community that harms the drug causes.
The drugs come mainly from Southeast Asia. The UN says the so-called Golden Triangle is producing unprecedented quantities of meth. Now, this is a region where Myanmar, Laos, and Thailand converge. Now, much of it is made in rebel-controlled labs in Myanmar's Shan state, smuggled out by cartels, then shipped to Australia's long and exposed coastline.
Use of the drug cuts across class lines, from tradesmen and miners to teachers, doctors, even judges. Addiction has become widespread. Despite record seizures, meth continues to grip Perth. Authorities say the crisis shows no signs of easing. Perth's meth epidemic has left police, health workers and communities stretched. And with global production still on the rise, experts warn Australia's drug crisis may only deepen.
Well, it's time now for a very short break on World Day. We'll be back with more on the other side. We start with the Delhi police that has made a second arrest in connection with the recent attack on Chief Minister Rekha Gupta during a Jan Sunwai program at her residence. All the details on the other side.
And in Indonesia's main island, Java, authorities are cracking down on blaring loudspeaker towers used in street parties following growing complaints from residents. This and a lot more lined up for you on the other side of the break. This is World DNA. Stay with us.
The Earth is sending distress signals. Wildfires, droughts, and melting glaciers. Can we reverse the damage? Explore the harrowing effects of climate change. It's a wake-up call. Global emergency. Climate Tracker on WION World is One.
From the bustling trading floors of Wall Street to the vibrant exchanges of Asian stock markets, WION breaks it down for you to make sense of what's happening. As we reveal the key factors behind events, strategic battles, and the game-changing business decisions that shape the world. We bring you all of this and more on World Business Watch. WION, India's global voice, the channel that brings you the biggest stories from across the world through India's lens. Now available in more than 190 countries worldwide. Because we believe that the world is one. Watch us in Africa, Europe, USA and Canada, South America, Asia Pacific, Middle East and North African regions. Also available on these digital platforms across the world. WION. World is one.
dive into your daily dose of news.
Bringing you what's trending in the West and all that's setting trends in the East.
And all of this served up with a side of insightful banter.
We don't just bring you the latest stories.
We bring you your talking points for the day.
And while you do that, from the busy streets of New York, I will provide you with deeper insights on the developments through the course of the day in the U.S.
The show that keeps you ahead of the global curve. A conversation you'd want to be a part of.
A place where news becomes an engaging exchange.
We bring you stories that impact your present.
This is World DNA.
Join the conversation.
Welcome back, viewers. You're watching World DNA with Jyotsna. I'm Shivan. Lots more to discuss. Let's start with the headlines.
Preston, I think the Russians have made significant concessions to President Trump for the first time in 3.5 years of this conflict. They've actually been willing to be flexible on some of their core demands.
U.S. Vice President J.D. Vance rejects suggestions that Moscow is slow walking a potential peace deal in Ukraine, says Russia has made significant concessions to Donald Trump over its demands for ending the war.
Vice President J.D. Vance says President Donald Trump applied aggressive economic leverage, including secondary tariffs on India, to force Russia to stop bombing Ukraine.
India's envoy to Russia says Indian companies will continue buying oil from wherever they get the best deal. Adds New Delhi's priority is ensuring energy security for its people.
India has informed Pakistan about the flood situation in Tavi River via its Indian High Commission to Pakistan Foreign Ministry with Indus Waters Treaty in abeyance. This is the first time India has used this mechanism to alert Pakistan about the flood situation.
Houthi officials say Israeli strikes in Yemen's capital, Sanaa, on Sunday killed at least 6 people and injured more than 60. The Israeli military said the targets included a military compound housing the presidential palace, 2 power plants, and a fuel storage site.
France Foreign Ministry summons the US ambassador to Paris, Charles Kushner, and this is after he wrote a letter to President Macron claiming the French government isn't doing enough to fight anti-Semitism in the country.
Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov says Moscow will not accept President Volodymyr Zelensky's signature on any deal to end the war, as the Kremlin views Zelensky as the de facto head of the regime, but not a legitimate leader of Ukraine.
The US state of Maryland has detected a new case of the flesh-eating screwworm parasite in a human in the country. As per reports, the case was traced to a person who traveled from Guatemala.
The US dollar struggles to recover after Fed Chair Powell signals a possible September rate cut. Markets respond swiftly while Trump's attacks on Fed officials add pressure to central bank stability.
Aryna Sabalenka starts her US Open title defense with a straight sets win over Rebecca Masarova. The world number one will face Polina Kudermetova in the next round.
Okay, so much Sabalenka. 2 sets to love, 7-5, 6-1.
Well, let's begin by looking at all the top stories making headlines in India at this hour. India has informed Pakistan about the flood situation in Tavi River via its Indian High Commission to Pakistan Foreign Ministry. This is the first time India has used this mechanism to alert Pakistan about the flood situation via High Commission. This was not done through Indus Waters Treaty, which remains in abeyance. Now, under the treaty, information is shared through Indus Water Commissioner. The Indus Water Treaty has been in abeyance after the Pahalgam terror attack. Heavy rainfall has caused severe flooding in Jammu. Rivers such as Tavi, Chenab, Uj, Ravi and Basantar have swelled, prompting high alerts for disaster response teams.
The Delhi police has made a second arrest in connection with the recent attack on Chief Minister Rekha Gupta during a public meeting program at her residence. The second accused has been identified as Tehseen Syed, a friend of the prime accused Rajesh Bhai Khimji. Syed was detained by the Delhi police from Gujarat's Rajkot on Friday for allegedly transferring money to Khimji. According to reports, Syed was brought to Delhi from Rajkot on Friday evening for questioning and was made to confront his friend.
कृपया समस्त गांव काफी ध्यान दें। रीड नदी का जलस्तर
Tarali Police Station, Uttarakhand has alerted local residents by making announcements in the area after a yellow alert was issued by the Meteorological Department. Earlier, Uttarakhand Chief Minister Pushkar Singh Dhami visited the disaster-affected area in Tarali in Chamoli district and inquired about the well-being of the affected people and also reviewed the relief work. The Chief Minister has assured all possible help to the affected families.
Prime Minister Modi is on a two-day visit to Gujarat, during which he will inaugurate and lay the foundation stone for multiple infrastructure and development projects worth over 5,400 crore rupees. The initiatives span key sectors including urban development, energy transport and green mobility. On the 26th of August, Prime Minister Modi will travel to Hansalpur to flag off Suzuki's first global strategic battery electric vehicle for export to over 100 countries. In a major diplomatic development, Pakistan and Bangladesh are engaging at the highest level in years.
And this is with Pakistan's Foreign Minister Ishaq Dar meeting top Bangladeshi leaders in Dhaka. On Sunday, Dar met with the interim government's chief advisor, Mohammed Yunus. Yunus currently heads Bangladesh's transitional leadership following the ouster of former Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina in last year's mass uprising.
He also held talks with Mohammad Tauhid Hussain, the advisor for foreign affairs. The two sides signed agreements to enhance trade, deepen economic cooperation and expand cultural exchanges. In the month of February, they expanded government-to-government commerce and began sea trade last year.
Now, Foreign Minister Dutt is the most senior Pakistani official to visit Dhaka since 2012, with Islamabad calling it a significant milestone in Pakistan-Bangladesh relations.
Despite growing diplomatic ties, one issue, however, still remains unresolved. Dhaka demands that Islamabad must apologize for the 1971 war atrocities.
Speaking to reporters, Hussain said that pending issues must be resolved to prevent any conflicts in their partnership, before quickly adding that the potential to foster goodwill between the people of two countries was immense. Now, Colombo's skies turned into a canvas of color and creativity as its skies came to life with the beginning of the Dadana Colombo International Kite Festival.
With over 500 local flyers and 55 international participants from 25 countries, the event saw culture unite with community.
This is my first time to the Colombo International Kite Festival. I've been to 24 countries, but this is my 25th. I'm really enjoying the hospitality here in Colombo.
In Indonesia's main island, Java, authorities are cracking down on blaring loudspeaker towers used in street parties following growing complaints from residents. Mounted on trucks, these sound systems often roll through villages, blasting music.
Now, these music, they echo through homes, sometimes loud enough to shake the windows. Locals often rent these sound systems, called sound horek in Javanese, for weddings, circumcisions and Independence Day events. But in recent weeks, rising concerns over the noise levels and health effects of these street parties have pushed the government to take action.
I like music, but if it's too loud, it hurts my ears. I'm sure the people of East Java understand that we enjoy music, but when it comes to health, we strongly reject it.
Authorities have moved to restrict how and where these speaker systems can be used. They have capped sound levels at 120 decibels for fixed units and limited mobile setups used in parades or protests to 85 decibels. The rules also prohibit mobile sound systems near schools, hospitals, ambulances and religious services.
The crackdown follows online backlash from residents who say the noise disturbs daily life and causes stress. Religious leaders have declared the excessive noise haram, or forbidden under Islamic law, particularly when it disturbs worship. Meanwhile, health officials have warned that consistent exposure to high decibel sound can raise the risk of heart-related issues.
Still, the sound business remains essential to the local economy. Small vendors and rental services rely on it for income during community events.
This business is mutually beneficial. It is mutually beneficial for street vendors as well as rental businesses, whether they rent out lighting or audio equipment.
Well, South Korea's President Lee Jae-myung is in the United States to meet U.S. President Donald Trump.
Lee is visiting Washington, D.C. after talks with Japanese Prime Minister Shigeru Ishiba in Tokyo. Lee is due to meet Trump at the White House for their first summit. The future of the South Korea-US alliance and the approach to nuclear-armed North Korea is expected to be a key part of the White House discussions. Trump wants Seoul to pay significantly more for the 28,500 U.S. troops stationed in South Korea.
As Lee headed to the U.S., a special South Korean delegation met Chinese officials, including Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi. The delegation was led by former Parliament Speaker Park Byung-soo. Park told Wong he hoped the countries would work together to open the door to normalizing South Korea-China relations, which have been strained in recent years.
Earlier, South Korean president met Japanese Prime Minister Shigeru Ishiba in his first official visit since taking office. The trip marks first time that a South Korean president has chosen Japan for their inaugural bilateral visit since 1965, when diplomatic relations were normalized.
And Japan and South Korea also share common ground on trade, with both agreeing to 15% tariffs on U.S. imports of their goods after Trump had threatened steeper duties.
North Korea, however, criticized the summit between the South Korean side and Japanese leaders, calling it a diplomatic show aimed at dispelling Washington's misunderstanding. It also accused Lee of using peace and security on the Korean peninsula and in the region as a bargaining chip. US Vice President J.D. Vance doubled down on Trump's decision to impose secondary tariffs on India.
Now, these tariffs are linked to its Russian oil imports, calling it an economic leverage. Vance said these measures were aimed at pressuring Russia by making it harder to profit. And this comes as the Trump administration faces scrutiny after what many call selective targeting of India.
Meanwhile, India has firmly rejected the US criticism following Trump's tariff hike on Indian imports. Relations between the two countries are facing severe strain. While the threats from the US exerts pressure on the Indian economy, Indian businesses affirm that they will choose wherever they get the best deal from.
India's envoy to Russia, Vinay Kumar, said that asserting that India will continue taking measures which protect its national interest. In an interview with Russia's state-run TASS news agency published on Sunday, Kumar said that New Delhi's priority is ensuring energy security of the country's 1.4 billion people.
Analysts note that the world is moving towards a multipolar economic order where India, Russia and China are increasingly collaborating, reducing the impact of unilateral measures like US tariffs.
Experts cited by Mint say India, China, Russia trinity yields nearly $54 trillion in GDP, represents 3.1 billion people, and controls 1/5 of global merchandise exports.
Russia provides energy, China dominates manufacturing, and India contributes services and a growing consumer market. And this partnership is encouraging currency diversification, shifting supply chains from China to India, and reducing reliance on the US dollar. Analysts see India positioned as a key partner in this triad.
Now, as fears of a slow US economy creep back, some businesses are reviving an old idea, the so-called recession specials.
From New York to San Francisco, businesses are tapping into economic anxiety with low-cost combos and even recession-themed parties, all while consumer sentiment data shows Americans are bracing for tougher times ahead. More in this next report.
As fears of a slowing US economy linger, businesses are reviving the so-called recession specials. The phrase first gained traction during the 2008 financial crisis when restaurants in New York offered discounted meals to stay afloat. Fast forward to 2025 and the trend is resurfacing. From Brooklyn coffee shops to Manhattan bars and Bay Area burger chains, establishments are once again turning economic anxiety into value-driven offers and cultural events. Recent examples include Clever Blend in Brooklyn, offering a $6 gelato and espresso deal, and San Francisco-based Super Duper, which introduced a $10 recession combo that saves customers $5 compared to the normal pricing. The burger went viral online, attracting over 1,400 upvotes on Reddit and strong customer demand. Bars and concert venues are also capitalizing on the mood, hosting recession-themed parties that frame financial stress with humor and entertainment. Behind these promotions lie a broader shift in consumer sentiment. The University of Michigan's Consumer Sentiment Index fell 13.7% in August compared to last year. Analysts link this pessimism to trade policy concerns, rising inflation, and expectations of weaker labor markets. According to researchers, Americans across age groups now share a gloomy outlook, bracing for higher unemployment and slower growth. These recession specials may be light-hearted, but they reflect a deeper anxiety about the direction of the economy. Business Bureau, WION World is One.
Over to sports now. World number one Aryna Sabalenka is off to a winning start at the US Open.
The defending champion recovered from a slow start to beat Switzerland's Rebecca Masarova in straight sets. Three-time Grand Slam champion Sabalenka arrived in New York after a shaky run in Cincinnati, and early on she was pushed hard by world number 108 Masarova. The Swiss broke Sabalenka in the fifth game, but the top seed immediately broke back. Sabalenka held her nerve in the big moments and secured another break to take a tight first set. From there, it was all a one-way traffic. The Belarusian turned up the heat and dominated the second set as Masarova struggled to hold serve. In the end, Sabalenka sealed a comfortable 7-5, 6-1 win in just 1 hour and 21 minutes. She now moves on to face Russia's Polina Kudermetova in round 2.
Sabalenka is looking to become the first woman since Serena Williams in 2014 to successfully defend her US Open title.
2 sets to love, 7-5, 6-1.
I mean, both feels amazing. I love to be defending champion. It's for me, it's motivation, you know, and I want to do well. I want to do the same that I did last year. I want to feel those emotions, and I really work hard for that, and I hope that I'll be able to reach my goal here.
And today marks the 67th birthday of Tim Burton, the director whose name has become synonymous with a unique brand of gothic fantasy.
Now, of course, across 4 decades, from his early work with Disney to his latest triumph with the Netflix series Wednesday, Burton has cultivated a cinematic world instantly recognizable from the first frame.
It is a world where the macabre is often beautiful. The outsiders are the heroes, and the shadows hold as much charm as the light. Born in California, a suburb known for its bright, sunny disposition, Burton's artistic sensibilities were forged in the contrast between his environment and his inner world. This tension is a recurring theme in his work, where meticulously manicured suburban lawns hide dark secrets and lonely, misunderstood creatures inhabit decaying Gothic castles. He has a profound love for dark frames, using lighting, expressionistic angles, and a monochrome palette with strategic bursts of color to create his signature visual language.
Now, this distinctive style is evident in iconic films such as Batman and Edward Scissorhands. His stop-motion animations, including The Nightmare Before Christmas and Corpse Bride, are masterpieces of design, showcasing his ability to find beauty in the ghostly and the grotesque. Burton's frequent collaborations with actors like Johnny Depp, Helena Bonham Carter, and composer Danny Elfman have been instrumental in bringing his vision to life.
Tim Burton's legacy is secure. He is more than just a filmmaker. He is a visionary artist who has consistently invited audiences to embrace their own inner weirdness and find solace in the strange.
With that, we call a wrap to World Day today. And before we leave, here is a look at all the climate stories making headlines across the world. We'll all stand up on the other side of this very short break. Be right back.
The Earth is sending distress signals. Wildfires, droughts, and melting glaciers. Can we reverse the damage? Explore the harrowing effects of climate change. It's a wake-up call. Global emergency. Climate Tracker on WION World is One.
From the bustling trading floors of Wall Street to the vibrant exchanges of Asian stock markets, WION breaks it down for you to make sense of what's happening. As we reveal the key factors behind events, strategic battles, and the game-changing business decisions that shape the world. We bring you all of this and more on World